You are Locked On Giants POSTCAST. Part of Locked On Sports New York on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It was a gorgeous weather day in the Meadowlands. Problem was the Giants are playing. And it was only thing pleasant was that weather. This Week 7 matchup was a blowout again. The rival Eagles take care of the Giants. Final score 28-3. Call it Saquon's revenge. The former Giants running back had a whale of a day. We'll discuss. Much to the dislike of the home crowd. Lots of boos. Daniel Jones was benched. Malik Neighbors was ignored. And now Big Blue is 2-5 on the season. Again, after a 28-3 loss against the Eagles. Hello, everyone. I'm Jay Berman. If you're a New Yorker, you might recognize my work. If not, welcome aboard. I've spent more than 2 decades in the biz, everything from TV to web to radio. You can follow me on X at Jay Berman. That's Jayberman. Welcome to the Locked On Giants postcast, both on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel and the Locked On Giants podcast feed. The postcast gives you a place to hang out after every single Giants game. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We'll discuss everything. Daniel Jones, who, as we said, was benched, looked overwhelmed at stages of today's game. Not really his fault. We'll certainly chat Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns, who showed up despite the offensive struggles. The defense was solid. They were absolute studs, were Lawrence and Burns once again. We've got to discuss the lack of the running game, which is just killing the offense. And, of course, no Andrew Thomas, obviously the most indispensable Giant on the roster, and he is no longer there for the rest of the season. All that coming up on the postcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. All right, we're off and running, 28-3 the final score. And if I had told you the Giants would have 5 more sacks today and hold Jalen Hurts to 10 of 14 passing for 114 yards, would you have suggested the Giants would get wiped off the map? Probably not. And especially with the good defense. Problem is the run defense did not exist today, hence the Saquon revenge. Barkley goes for 176 yards. We'll break down his 3 big runs. He did have a touchdown as well, 17 carries for 176 yards. Gainwell had 56 on the ground. Hurts had 22. Even Shipley had 16. Add it all up, it's 45 carries for 270 yards on the ground. That's 5 yards a clip. They scored 3 touchdowns on the ground. Obviously, the tush push twice from Jalen Hurts really sealed the deal and put the game away. As for Saquon, we know about the 3-year deal he got from the Eagles. Of course, signed that back in March. A 55-yard run and a touchdown on the Eagles' first scoring drive. That made it 7-0 Philadelphia. The long run of 38 yards, another touchdown finishes the drive. The Hurts tush push number 1. That made it 21-3 Philadelphia. And then a 41-yarder from Saquon to set up another tush push, the second of the day. That made it 28-3, and it was lights out. As we said, 176 rushing yards for Saquon, the second most of any running back versus a former team. Get this, Cedric Benson with the Bengals versus the Bears, 189 yards on the ground. So Saquon almost got there. Now for Saquon, 21 touchdowns in 38 games at MetLife Stadium, most in the NFL. And as we said, Saquon was a stud. The absolute last thing you wanted to see was the Giants lose. The absolute last thing you wanted to see, in addition to a Giants loss, was a monster day from Saquon. So not only do the Giants get blown out, but Saquon has his revenge type day. And if it makes it any worse, folks, in the first half, Giants running backs, get this, had 3 carries for 4 yards. Literally 3 carries for 4 yards. Giants ended up with 76 yards rushing, but a lot of it meaningless at the end. Daniel Jones, 14 of 21 for 99 yards. Terrible. Just had nothing downfield. And then eventually he was replaced by Drew Lock. Not a surprise there that we saw Lock come in. Perhaps a little bit surprising at the stage of the game. We saw him in really early in the fourth. In fact, more than 11 minutes to play in the fourth quarter when Drew Lock finally came in. As we said, 5 sacks today for the Giants. They've now got 31 on the season, which is the most in the NFL. We talked about it. If we told you all about these sacks and how many of them would impact the game, you'd never suggest the Giants would be 2-5. The Eagles had 5 sacks in the first half, a total of 8. We know the reason why. No Andrew Thomas. Josh Azudu was his replacement today on the left side, and it was NG, no good. An absolute destruction game for the Philly defensive line. As we said, 5 sacks in the first half for the Eagles, 8 overall. There was a total of 13 sacks today, 8 for the Eagles, 5 for the Giants. Neither offensive line, despite the rushing numbers for the Eagles, neither offensive line can pass protect at this point in time. As for the numbers, receiving Malik Neighbors, the first play of the game, you figured it was going to be a monster game for Neighbors. They went right to him, makes the reception. And then despite the fact that he did have 8 targets, really never saw Neighbors the rest of the way. 4 catches for 41. That first catch was his long for 14 yards, and that was it. Wandale, another drop. The Giants now second in the league with those drops. Robinson was targeted 9 times, had 6 catches, but only 23 yards. That's a 3.8 yards per catch average, which is just miserable. Just absolutely miserable. Again, just 105 yards. Receiving, Daniel Jones, 99 through the air. And as we said, Drew Lock came in and it wasn't much better. 3 of 8 for 6 yards. He had 3 completions for 6 yards. And it really felt like the killer in this one was the 4th and 3, Hurts to Brown. It really looked like he just tossed it up. No surprise Nick Sirianni went for it on 4th down again. No surprise that he did it deep in Giants territory, and no surprise when he did it on the tush push both times. Not one, but 2 times there was the tush push. All right, as we said, the 4th and 3, Hurts to Brown, 41 yards in the score. That made it 14-0 Eagles. And despite the fact that it wasn't over at that point in time, it certainly felt like it was. The Giants are now 0-4 at home. Perhaps even more embarrassing is that they have 1 touchdown in those 4 home games. They managed just the field goal today. They've got 10 touchdowns this season. That is the 3rd fewest in the league. And get this, Giants this year are averaging over 14 points per game, just over 14 points per game. They've scored over 20 just once. Last year, we know how miserable the offense was. Last year, they averaged just north of 15 points per game. So believe it or not, despite those 2 road wins in Cleveland and Seattle, a good one in Seattle, the Giants offense once again has been miserable. It was even bad with Andrew Thomas there, but you saw how indispensable he is, how just frustratingly mad and how much you want to pull your hair out that Andrew Thomas can't stay healthy. That's 2 years in a row now. It is a monster injury. Now the Eagles have won 6 of the last 7 versus the Giants. As we said, a huge injury. Andrew Thomas, Jones bench, Saquon's return, and a Week 8 preview all coming up next. All right, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Therapy is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them. You might be thinking, quote, I don't have time. But with BetterHelp, you can connect with a therapist entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. Plus, you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge until you find the perfect fit. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/locked-on. All right, I'm going to be honest. I didn't love college the first time around, but now perhaps a little different take. I find history fascinating. Lucky for me and you too, because our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses. Here's a few of the courses available. Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution. Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope. That's one that I would definitely take. Plus, there's the rise and fall of the Roman Republic. And since I just visited Rome, true story, I'm interested in that as well. And there's a brand new documentary style course on Marxism, socialism, and communism. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost. It's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. All right, we're back for segment 2 of the postcast. 28-3, the final score. The Giants are now 2-5, and they continue to struggle at home. Not only are they winless at home, but they're almost scoreless as well. They have just one touchdown in 4 home games. It has been, once again, a struggle, to say the least, on offense. Again, 28-3, the final score. Giants, as we said, have just 10 touchdowns total the entire season through 7 games. Not good. Third fewest in the league. It's hard to imagine there are teams with fewer touchdowns than the Giants. We told you about the points per game average, now right around 14. It was 15 last year, and we all figured the Giants' offense had improved. Well, statistically, not so much. Saquon, who of course signed the 3-year deal, $37.5 million, looks like a bargain now. He signed that back in March. His 3 big runs today: 55-yarder on a drive that made it 7-0 Philadelphia, a 38-yarder on a drive that made it 21-3 Philadelphia, and then the final big one, a 41-yarder, set up another tush push that made it 28-3 Philadelphia. And again, he runs for 176, the second most versus a former team. And this bears repeating. Cedric Benson with the Bengals versus the Bears several years ago ran for 189 on the ground. But again, Saquon, 176 on the ground, did have a touchdown as well. Jalen Hurts, 10 of 14, 114 yards, not much through the air. Despite the A.J. Brown touchdown, Brown had 5 for 89 and the score. But again, the rushing Eagles offense was the story. They ran for 270 yards, which is just amazing. Just mind-boggling that one team could rush for that much. It's amazing. Gainwell, Hurts, and Shipley combined to rush for almost 100 yards themselves. That's without Saquon, who rushed for 176. Amazing stuff. And when was the last time you saw both backup quarterbacks in the game with just about an entire quarter to go? Kenny Pickett came in for Jalen Hurts, obviously to avoid an injury at that point when the game was no longer in question. And then obviously Drew Lock, who came in with 11 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter. Daniel Jones doesn't even get a shot to turn it around. Not that he did, not that he had the chances to, not with Josh Azudu at left tackle. No offense, Josh, but that was a revolving door today. No trouble for that defensive line of the Eagles to get in on Jones, who, as we said at the top, overwhelmed. Had no chance today. It was visions of the 2023 Giants. And what's interesting about today is, despite the fact that it wasn't in blowout mode yet, this game felt pretty much over through 2.5 quarters. Really, after the first Eagles drive of the third quarter, or I guess the first scoring drive of the Eagles' third quarter possessions, ended it. It really did, for all intents and purposes. You just didn't feel like the Giants had enough on offense. Obviously, no running game, nothing downfield. And again, because of it, the Giants are now 2-5. Malik Neighbors, as we said, 4 for 41. Wan'Dale Robinson, a key drop once again, 6 for 23. The long today for Wan'Dale was 6 yards. 6 yards, which is just terrible on so many fronts. And we talked about it. Malik Neighbors, right out of the gates, the Giants focused in on him. Now, obviously, he was going to get double teamed for the better part of the game, and eventually the Eagles made that maneuver. However, was Wan'Dale ever open? Was Slayton ever open? Was Bellinger ever open? Was Tracy or Gray or Singletary in the flat ever open? They threw to Jalen Hyatt once, and he fell on the ball, got hurt. Oh, so frustrating. Just absolutely frustrating. And because of all this, we had 2 backups play, and now we have a bagel in the win column at home for the Giants, despite the fact that they continue to rack up the sacks. If you recall, the Giants had just 34 sacks all of last year. They've already got 31 through 7 games. They had 5 more today, 4 in the first half. They got to Jalen Hurts, and Hurts did some scrambling around in the first half, seemingly not knowing where he was going, to be quite honest. It was pretty funny. He actually stumbled into several sacks today, not taking any credit away from the Eagles. But again, tremendous stuff from the Philly defensive line as the Giants get steamrolled once again. All right, Giants, as we said, now 0-4 at home, 1 touchdown in 4 home games. The Eagles have won 6 of the last 7 versus the Giants. That includes today. And believe it or not, the Eagles are now 4-2. They already had their bye week. And again, they are now quietly 4-2. And despite the struggles, very much alive. Let's check the up to the minute standings. Eagles and Commanders are now 4-2. Commanders have a week 7 game as well. Cowboys are 3-3. The Giants are now 2-5. The Giants, of course, have the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday night in week 8. So that won't be easy as the Giants hit the road, although that's where they've been successful. They're 2-1 on the road. Of course, the one loss could have been a win. The one loss on the road was in Washington against the Commanders in week 2. However, they do have road wins in Cleveland. Admittedly, Cleveland is not great, but they do have a win in Seattle. Seattle's a solid team. That was a good matchup for the Giants. They ran the ball. They stopped the high-powered offense of Seattle, and they got the job done. Problem is, these matchups have not been good at home. And now the Giants are 0-4 at home, 1 touchdown in those 4 games. All right, we'll take a break. And as we said, we'll set you up for Monday Night Football. That, of course, is next week when the Giants face the Steelers. All right, listen up, NFL fans. Now is your chance to start the season with a big return. Yep, you can do it with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So here's what you do when you have a hunch in the middle of the game. Go over to FanDuel, check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more. The best part is it's all on the same page where you placed your bets. Everything is right there for you. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, final segment of the show. We are back. It's a 28-3 loss for the Giants, again, blown out by the Eagles. Nick Sirianni and company could have made it worse, despite the fact that Sirianni loves to run up the score, specifically on the Giants. We've seen that in the past. 28-3, and he actually called off the Dogs, bringing in Kenny Pickett in the 4th quarter. Giants also brought in their backup quarterback, Drew Lock. Question is, or at least moving forward, if for some chance, and I don't believe it's going to happen, but if for some chance for Monday, the Giants bench Daniel Jones, might see Tommy DeVito instead of Drew Lock. Not that Lock's performance today was an attempt to predict the future, meaning Locke would be the starting quarterback? No, because he was overwhelmed just like Jones was. They need help on the offensive line, obviously. But with that being said, maybe they see DeVito. Maybe DeVito starts against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday night. Again, 28-3 the final score. We were wondering about the Singletary and Neighbors return impact. Well, we didn't see much of it on offense, obviously. Singletary, 5 carries for 18 yards. Neighbors, 4 catches for 41 yards. Believe it or not, Wan'Dale had more targets than Malik. Wan'Dale had 9, but the key drop killed him. And then Neighbors had just 8 targets. No one else with more than 3. All right. 28-3, as we said, the final score. And the Giants will now look towards Monday Night Football on October 28th. That is in a week and a day. They'll be in Pittsburgh. At this point in time, the Steelers are favored. No surprise there. That, I believe, is 24 consecutive games the Giants will be an underdog. Steelers laying 3.5 at this point in time. Total is low. It's 37.5. But again, Giants and Steelers will cap off week number 8, amazingly, already to week 8 of the NFL. Giants and Steelers will finish things up next Monday night. Daniel Jones, 14 of 21, couldn't even get to 100 yards passing, just 99 yards passing. He did not play well. But to be fair, didn't have much time. At any point, Zudu was terrible. And to be fair, it's amazing how one side of the line collapses and the other side is right there to collapse itself as well. Just complete pocket collapse around Daniel Jones, and we saw that all day. Again, 28-3, Giants are now 2-5. They're absolutely horrible at home. 0-4, they have 1, folks, count it up with me, 1 touchdown in those 4 home games. So if you're going to spend all your money and go to a Giant game, you're not even going to see a touchdown. You may see a field goal. Just terrible stuff. And now the Giants are 2-5. Thank you for making Locked On Sports New York your first listen today. Now for your second listen, go find the new Locked On NFL with 2 shows every single day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also want to mention our partner in crime over at Locked On Giants. That, of course, is Patricia Traina. She handles all the stuff there. She's the best. Follow, subscribe, and enjoy. Another Sunday, another same old story type game for the Giants. It felt like 2023 all over again. Eagles beat the Giants handily 28-3. Giants are still winless at home. They're now 2-5 on the season, while the Eagles improved to 4-2. Again, next Monday night, the next Giants postcast will be that Monday nighter as we put a capper on week 8, Giants and Steelers from Pittsburgh.